The call of the silent cities. Wait a moment. Really wait. Stop looking at the screen and think. Around you lies one of the densest rainforests in the world. The air is harsh, humid. You can feel yourself breathing. The sound of water dripping from leaves echoes in your ears. Birds sing in their own languages, but this is not a peaceful silence. This is a living, unsettling silence. And then, something appears between the trees. Stone, something that does not belong to nature, yet is buried within it. A massive stone structure, surrounded by roots. Its walls are covered in moss. Its stairways are broken by tree branches. As you look upward, you realize this is not just a structure. It is a pyramid, but not an ordinary pyramid. This was once the heart of a city where tens of thousands of people lived. Now it is silent. No human voices, no footsteps, no incense smoke, no prayers, only the forest. These cities have remained like this for centuries. No one wanted to search for them. No one returned. It is as if one day everyone woke up at the same time, walked away without looking back, and never came again. This is the beginning of one of history's greatest mysteries. The lost world deep in Central America, from Guatemala to Honduras, from southern Mexico to the Yucatan Peninsula, these lands once hosted one of the most advanced civilizations on Earth. Today we call them the classic Maya civilization, but for a long time the world was not even certain they had existed, because these places were not destroyed. They were not burned. They were not invaded. They were simply abandoned. And the forest is patient. It is silent, but it does not forget. Over centuries, trees advanced over stone. Roots shattered stairways. Vines wrapped around walls. Open plazas returned to the soil. Eventually, these cities began to look like part of nature itself, as if they had never existed at all. For you knew the truth. The world did not want to believe until the 19th century. Many people in Europe and America believed this. A great civilization could never have existed in the Americas. If massive stone structures existed, they must have been built by Egyptians, people from Atlantis, the lost tribes of Israel. The idea that indigenous peoples could have built such structures was for many unthinkable, until two men shattered that prejudice. Two men entered the jungle. In 1839, an expedition began into the politically chaotic, unmapped and dangerous regions of Central America. The first man, John Lloyd Stevens, an American lawyer, diplomat, and traveler. His curiosity outweighed his fear. The second man, Frederick Catherwood, a British architect and artist with an extraordinary eye and an almost obsessive attention to detail. Both had heard the same rumors. Stone cities hidden in the jungle, known to no one with certainty. Their journey was not easy. Insects, disease, swamps, armed groups, civil war. But they did not give up. And one day near the Copan River in Honduras, after cutting through the jungle, they reached a clearing. What rose before them took their breath away. Kings of stone, giant stone monuments rose from the earth. They were carved from top to bottom. Faces, crowns, complex symbols. These were not ordinary decorations. Catherwood understood immediately. This art was not easy to produce. It was the result of high aesthetics and mathematical order. Stevens saw the larger picture. These people lived here. These cities were their creation, and the world erased them from memory. This was undeniable proof that an indigenous civilization in the Americas was as advanced as Egypt or Greece. The silent cities could no longer remain hidden. Awakening curiosity, deepening mystery, Stevens wrote. Catherwood drew. Catherwood's drawings were not romantic fantasies. They were architectural, precise, faithful to reality. Every stone, every figure, recorded as it truly was. When these drawings were published, the world was astonished. But this was only the beginning, because the cities had been found, yet no one knew why they had been abandoned. In these cities, there were temples but no gods, palaces but no kings, plazas but no people. This silence was now screaming. How does a civilization disappear? Were these cities, slowly abandoned, Destroyed by disaster? Struck by famine? Shaken by a collapse of faith? Conquered by enemies? The stones did not speak, but clues remained. Inscriptions, abandoned structures, half-finished temples. And most disturbing of all, at a certain point, history simply stopped answering. For centuries, every king, every victory, every ritual had been carved into stone. Then, one day, the writing stopped. That pause is where the catastrophe began. The beginning of a journey, this documentary follows those questions. Why did these cities fall silent? How did the Maya world rise to its peak? And how did it collapse? But the real question is this: did it truly collapse? Or was this the beginning of a very different story? Our journey begins now, into the depths of the forest, between the stones, toward the whispers of the silent cities, masters of time. To understand a civilization, you must first understand how it relates to time. We move through time. Days pass, years fade, everything ends. But for the Maya, time was not something that flowed away. Time was alive, time repeated itself. Time was never random, everything was predetermined. The pulse of time in the Maya world, days were not ordinary. Each day had a spirit. Each date carried meaning. When a child was born, it was not merely a birth. The energy of that day was etched into the child's fate. When a king ascended the throne, it was more than a political act. It was the recalibration of the cosmic order. For the Maya, a correct act done on the wrong day was wrong. A difficult sacrifice on the right day was sacred. That is why the Maya created one of the most complex calendar systems in history. The calendar, not just time, but a cosmic machine. Most people remember the Maya calendar for one thing, 2012. But that is the shallowest layer of the story. The Maya calendar was not a single calendar. It was a perfect harmony of multiple intertwined time cycles. Solkan, the 260-day sacred cycle. Hab, the 365-day solar year. Long count, a timeline spanning thousands of years. This system was so precise that the movements of Venus, eclipses, and seasons were calculated flawlessly. But the real question is this: why was such complex time knowledge so important? Because time was the reflection of the gods' language. Men between kings and gods. In the Maya world, a king was not merely a ruler. He was a symbol connecting two realms, sky and earth, gods and humans. The king's blood was not ordinary. His body was a sacred instrument. That is why Maya art often depicts kings giving blood, piercing their tongues, cutting their earlobes, sometimes doing far more. This was not done for cruelty. It was done to sustain the universe. Because the gods demanded blood. Blood, the price of the universe. According to Maya mythology, the world had not been created once, but many times, and destroyed many times. Humans were the gods' final experiment, and for that experiment to continue, the gods required payment. Blood. Blood was the essence of life, the most valuable offering. That is why there were rituals. That is why there were sacrifices. And that is why pyramids were not just temples. They were stages. The people gathered in the plaza, watching the king bleed above them. This was not a spectacle. It was a necessity. If the ritual was not performed, rain would not fall, crops would not grow, time would fall out of balance. The heart of the cities, Maya cities, were not random settlements. Every structure was aligned to a celestial event, a sacred day, or a mythological story. On certain days, sunlight slid down temple stairways like a serpent. This was no coincidence. It was intentional. But note this: there was no single Maya empire. Each city was its own state. Each king claimed to speak to the gods. And this inevitably led to one thing: constant war. The Maya world was not as peaceful as we imagine. Between cities there were alliances, betrayals, bloody wars. These wars were rarely about land. They were about captives, because rituals required people. Capturing an enemy king was more valuable than killing 10,000 soldiers. And the evidence of these wars was carved into stone. Every victory, every captive, every severed head, all recorded until the writing stopped. A fracture forms. For centuries, the system continued to function. The calendar turned. The king bled. The gods remained silent, but order held. But every system has a breaking point, and in the Maya world, that break began quietly. In some cities, monuments were left unfinished. Inscriptions were incomplete. Rituals became less frequent, as if something was no longer moving forward. But no one said it out loud. Because if you believe time is perfect, you cannot accept that it can break. The silence before the storm. We saw the silent cities. We understood how fragile the order beneath that silence was. Now the question is, did the gods stop speaking, or did people stop listening? In the chapters ahead, we will look to the soil, the sky, and the bones, because the answers are there. When the sky fell silent, when a civilization collapses, buildings do not fall first, beliefs do. And that is exactly what happened in the Maya world. The rain no longer came for centuries. Everything followed a pattern. Rain fell on time. Corn grew. The calendar turned. Kings bled. The gods remained silent, but the system worked. Then something changed. At first, no one noticed, or no one wanted to. One year, the rain came late. It happens, they said. The next year, it rained less. The gods are testing us, they said. Then came the third year, and the sky truly fell silent. The shadow of drought. The Maya land was unforgiving. The soil was thin, rain was seasonal, the jungle was dense, but the earth was fragile. Maya agriculture depended entirely on rain. There were reservoirs, there were dams, but only up to a point. Prolonged drought was fatal to the system, and here the first real question emerged. If kings spoke to the gods, why did the rain not come? The king's power is questioned. A Maya king's power did not rest on armies. It rested on rituals, calendar knowledge, the claimed connection to the gods, but without rain, that connection lost meaning. Without corn, blood rituals meant nothing. And for the first time, whispers began, quietly in the dark, in marketplaces. Maybe the gods have abandoned him. Maybe the wrong king sits on the throne. Maybe the problem isn't the gods. These words were never spoken loudly, but even whispering them was a threat to the system. Population pressure, the price of success. As the Maya civilization collapsed, it was crushed by its own success. During the Golden Age, population increased, cities expanded, pyramids rose, but growth exceeded what nature could sustain. For more corn, forests were cut, soil was overworked, water sources were drained. It worked in the short term. In the long term, it brought disaster. The soil was exhausted. When rain failed, everything collapsed. Now there was not one crisis, but many, all at once. Wars intensify as resources dwindled, tensions between cities rose. Wars that were once symbolic became brutal. Now the issue was not captives, but survival, for water, for land, for corn. Some cities advanced, others weakened rapidly, and the losers were the first to leave. The cities empty, archaeologists read this in stone. In some cities, monument construction stopped abruptly. No new inscriptions were added. Palaces fell into neglect. This was not the mark of invasion, nor destruction. It was abandonment. People did not flee overnight. They left slowly over years. First the elites, then the priests, finally the people. The cities were abandoned. The forest returned, and the stones fell silent. Did the gods leave or the people? This was the most unsettling question. If the gods controlled everything, why could this disaster not be prevented? Perhaps rituals were no longer sufficient, kings were no longer convincing, or the universe was stronger than humanity. But in the Maya world, there were no answers, because questioning the system meant questioning the universe itself, and not everyone could do that. The point of no return. We have seen the silent cities. We have understood the sacred order that sustained them. Now we know this. The collapse was not sudden, not caused by a single factor, and became inevitable. But the story is not over, because the Maya people, did not give up easily. The twilight of the gods. When a civilization collapses, even the gods fall silent. In the Maya world, that is exactly what happened. Blood no longer worked for centuries. Kings did the same thing. They bled. They suffered. They spoke to the gods. But this time, nothing happened. No rain, no harvest as before. No relief from fear. Rituals increased, but hope diminished. As sacrifices grew, so did hunger. And the people realized the gods were either angry or gone. The sacred contract breaks. The Maya had no written constitution, but they had a powerful agreement, a silent, invisible contract. We obey, you maintain order. That contract held for centuries, but now there was no order, no rain, no harvest, no security. So why obey the king? That question was what truly destroyed the Maya civilization. Not revolt, but abandonment. The Maya did not revolt. They did not burn palaces. They did not kill kings in the streets. They did something quieter. They left. A system collapses when no one works for it anymore, and people had stopped working for the system. The Great Migration. This was not a flight. It was a decision. Families gathered at night. They took what they could carry, corn seeds, ceramic vessels, memories of their ancestors. And without looking back, they left the stone cities behind. The pyramids remained, the temples remained, but life did not. The final days of the cities, archaeology tells us much. In some cities, fires were lit in palace courtyards, meals were cooked on ornate floors, sacred spaces became everyday places. This was not disrespect. It was the last attempt, and it failed. Eventually, everyone left, and the cities became truly silent for the first time. The forest reclaims. When humans leave, nature returns. Wind carried seeds into empty spaces. Roots split stone, trees wrapped around stairways, places once filled with thousands of people, temples once dedicated to gods, became shaded clearings, bird calls, insect hums. The Maya cities were embraced by the forest. Did a civilization end? No. A world ended, but the people survived. The Maya did not disappear. They simply abandoned their cities. They formed smaller communities. They pressured the land less. They renegotiated their relationship with nature. And because of that, they endured. The meaning of silence. When you stand in those cities today, you feel something. They are not threatening, but they are heavy. Because these stones tell us this: even the greatest structures cannot stand without belief. The beginning of the end. Now we know. The gods fell silent. The kings lost power. The cities emptied, but the story is not finished. Because the most remarkable part of the Maya story comes after this. Not the lost, but the remaining. When a civilization collapses, it seems like everything ends. But sometimes, the real story begins right there. The silent cities lie for centuries, people believed. The Maya civilization mysteriously vanished. The phrase is familiar and wrong. The Maya did not vanish. They simply gave up their cities. A civilization is not a city for modern people. Civilization means large buildings, crowded plazas, monuments, centralized power. For the Maya, civilization meant something else: a relationship with the land, language, memory, and ritual, ancestral knowledge in daily life. When cities fell, and these did not disappear, return to the forest. The Maya did not flee into the forest. They returned to it. They formed smaller communities. They did not exhaust the land. They did not try to conquer nature. They learned one truth: you either live with nature or you are crushed by it. A new world in the north. As southern cities fell silent, the Maya world did not descend entirely into darkness. The center shifted northward. In the Yucatan Peninsula, a new Maya world emerged, Chichen Itza. This city was different, more militaristic, more commercial, more outward-looking. Power no longer came only from the gods. It came from trade, the sea, and connections. The Maya world was no longer the same. Those who adapt survived. Northern cities did this: reduced dependence on rainfall, used maritime trade, built flexible systems. That is why they endured for centuries. But no system is eternal. They too eventually fell, quietly. When the Spaniards arrived, the Spaniards did not find a lost civilization. They found villages, agriculture, language, and most importantly, memory. The Maya people were still there. The Maya today in Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, El Salvador, more than 7 million Maya live on. Over 30 Maya languages are still spoken. Women still weave with patterns thousands of years old. In villages, corn is still sacred. Some rituals still blend ancient gods with newer beliefs. This is not a remnant. This is a living culture. What do the silent cities tell us? Maya cities tell us this: even the strongest civilizations cannot defeat nature. Belief systems collapse when they lose touch with reality. And sometimes to survive, a people must abandon their most magnificent creations. The mirror effect. This story is not only the Maya story, it is our story. Growing cities, strained nature, the illusion of endless resources, the belief that we are in control. The Maya believed this too. Then the sky stopped speaking. Final word. The Maya civilization did not disappear. An era ended. A path was abandoned. But people chose life. The silent cities are not a grave. They are a warning.